Hey everyone, welcome back to the Careers in Army Medicine podcast. I got Lieutenant Lim with us, and he is going to our program called USAGPAN. And if you don't know what that is, it's pretty much making him a nurse anesthetist.
It is, yes.
All right, hey, how's it going? Sergeant Sharps, we kind of had a little bit of a conversation before this going about the different programs, but one of the biggest things that I want to ask you about is where are you from and how did you even hear about Army medicine?
Yeah, so I'm from Killeen, Texas, which some of y'all might know. It's next to Fort Hood, Central Texas, basically. So I was born and raised there. I went to nursing school at Sam Houston State University near Houston. And then that's where I did my critical care nursing, experience. I was there for about 4 or 5 years. And so I kind of just Googled a bunch of CRNA schools. So I was one that applied to like 7 or 8 programs, and USAGPAN happened to be one of them. Main reason I applied for USAGPAN was because a few reasons. One, my dad was in the Army, so I felt like it was kind of a rite of passage thing, just to get that Army experience. But probably the biggest reason I ultimately went with USAGPAN was because they pay you to go to school, so you can just focus on the school aspect without having to take out loans or anything like that. So yeah.
When you said you did your crit care and everything, how much experience did you have prior to applying to USAGPAN? So just kind of give us a timeline. You went to nursing school, graduated, and then what?
Yeah, so I graduated nursing school in 2016, got my BSN, Bachelor's in Nursing. And then right off the bat, I got a job in a medical ICU in Houston. So I did that. I was at kind of like a smaller community size hospital. And for CRNA school, they really want you to get like high acuity, big city hospital. So I worked at this small facility for about 1.5 years, and then I applied to one of the bigger high acuity places. So I got a job there, and then I worked there for about another 2 years. So I had about almost 4 years of experience in solely medical ICU before I applied to USAGPAN and got in.
Awesome. And I know we took a look at one of your other videos. I'm going to go ahead and link it up to the top, kind of talking about your experience just applying for USAGPAN. So one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't apply to USAGPAN is mainly because of whether they think that they don't have high enough scores or they don't have certain things. So one of the things that you actually brought up is that you had a 3.0, 3.1 GPA, and
3.1 GPA,
and you still got in.
Yeah. So I can talk a little bit about that. So CRNA school is really competitive. I'll just say that everyone should know that. For USAGPAN, I'll say that if you meet the minimum requirements and you show the admissions panel, the committee, that you can succeed in grad school, you will get an interview. Now after that point, the interview, it's solely up to you. How well you speak, how much critical care knowledge you have. That's the key factor, I think, to getting into USAGPAN. But I'll say that if you have any interest at all in USAGPAN, you should just apply, like, if you meet the minimum requirements. Yeah.
So when it comes to, when you mentioned the panel, explain this panel a little bit more. Like, give us a little bit of insight into it.
Yeah. So I forgot when they meet, but it's it's basically a group of Army CRNAs. They get together. They look over your entire packet, you know, like your CV, um, your recommendation letters, your essay, um, and they just go over, you know, how well they think you'll do, and based off that, they'll either accept you or, you know, deny you. They do take into consideration highly your letter that you get from your interview. So that is a big factor. But yeah, they're all Army CRNAs. They do, you know, they are working active duty. I don't know if there are any reserves or whatever, but yeah, they just get together once a year. They look over all the applicants that got to go from their interviews, and then they'll either accept or deny that fiscal year's applicants.
Right. And I know so the date might change a little bit here and there, but as far as when you started processing, it's not a short process. And I try and be very upfront with that with anybody I talk to, that this, the first kind of hurdle to get over is just getting your packet in and applying. Cause it's the drive to complete that that shows the board that this is something that you really want to do. Kind of give us a little insight about what the process was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I first contacted my medical recruiter May of last year. Um, Maybe even earlier. It might have been like March or April, but that's just when I gave them the initial phone calls like, hey, my name is Jay. I'm interested in USAGPAN. I'm a critical care nurse, whatever. Um, so after that first phone call, I made a meeting, came into the office, and immediately uh, my recruiter, you know, made sure like all the boxes were checked, that I met the minimum requirements, and we kind of got the ball rolling like right on the first initial meeting. I got this huge packet. So this packet, it took quite a while. Yeah, I think it took me over a month to finish, and it's just this large PDF file, maybe 70 pages. Um, so that's one big part of the application process. And if you're applying, you'll also find that you're gonna get pushbacks coming to you every so often with that same packet. Like you'll miss something or whatnot. So it does take a long time. Um, you do have to go to MEPS. You know, that's a military process everyone should know about. So that's another thing. I think I got word back that I would go for an interview around July-ish. So from the completion of my packet to interview was about 2 months. And then I think it took maybe another 2 or 3 months to get word back that I was actually accepted into the program. So overall, like about 5-6 months, and then actually getting my orders was another 2 months. So all in all, it was like over half a year before I actually, you know, started doing my training and all of that stuff. So it's a long process, but if you show that you're dedicated, they'll totally see it. You meet the minimum requirements, and you get through everything. They'll know that you really want this.
Yeah. And so you mentioned training. I know we spoke a little bit briefly about the training requirements when you come in. So you go to DCC, which is the direct commissioning course, and you go to Bullock, which you just finished.
Yeah.
So first off, when did you get commissioned?
So I think, man, I don't remember the exact date. I got officially commissioned through my recruiter's office in maybe early December. Um, that was like my IRR, like the reserve component commission.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first day I got to DCC in Fort Sill, January 5th, that's when I switched over to like active component and signed like a new DA-31, which if you don't know what a DA-31 is, it's your oath of office. So officially, yeah, January 5th, the first day I got to DCC.
Okay. So DCC, you said it's at Fort Sill, which is Oklahoma. Just briefly go through what DCC was like for you.
Yeah, so DCC is a pretty culture shock. It's pretty crazy if you don't have any prior service or military knowledge. It's basically 1 month of just like a fast track introduction to the army lifestyle. Um, you'll stay on post in the barracks. You'll have bunk mates, 2 or 3, and every day you're in uniform. You know, you're going to class, you're learning about military lifestyle, the army lifestyle. You're marching everywhere in cadence, so it is pretty interesting. They just kind of I think the best analogy to compare it to is throwing a baby into the deep end of the pool and and forcing you to learn forcing that baby to learn how to swim. It's very comparable, but nothing that I would say nothing that you do will fail you out of the course unless if it's like immoral or unethical or just something totally against, you know, army doctrine. As long as you give in some effort, you'll do fine.
And so we always say it's kind of like basic training light. It's not
Yeah.
like going through basic training like I went through.
Mm.
It's what we call it more of a gentleman's course. So were there drill sergeants sitting there yelling at you every step of the way and stuff like that?
No, not at all. So yeah, you're right about that. It is more catered towards like medical officers. I don't want to say it's like any less difficult than basic training. You know, it is challenging to learn so much more information in such a short period of time. Um, but probably the biggest difference, yeah, there's no drill sergeant yelling at you. Um, we call we call the instructors cadre basically, and some of the cadre, you know, it really depends on the personality and teaching style. Some of them are a little more strict than others. They do uh, the more strict ones do expect a little more out of you, but it's definitely not like, you know, drill sergeants yelling at you or anything like that. As long as you give in the effort, you know, it'll go by smoothly.
And then, so once you finish up DCC, how long did you wait to go to Bullock?
So DCC was about a month long. Um, and then at the end of DCC, I think we had about 3 weeks off. There was a 3 week holdover period. But USAGPAN was able to come to San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston early so we can do our in processing and moving since this is our home station. So yeah, about 3 weeks, we were just able to settle, and then Bullock started early February,
Okay.
or mid-February, sorry, yeah.
And so I've been down to Fort Sam multiple times, and like you said, so USAGPAN got to go down early, and that's for getting people in process, getting you a place to actually live. Because I remember when I was going through one of my schools down there, we were in the same hotel that the Bullock officers were at. So
Okay,
it's
the
yeah.
holiday.
So we got to see him, and actually there was a lot of integration with us because as non-commissioned officers, we've been around the Army for a while, and you take brand new lieutenants and captains and sometimes even majors, and they're like, here's your rucksack, go put it together. And that we'll go walking into like the lobby area, and they're all down there sitting there trying to put it together, and wrong most of the time.
Right.
But it's at least you had some of the NCOs to kind of to guide them and help them out too. But
Yeah,
at
for
least
sure.
you got your place to live, and you're all settled in. So how long are you going to be at Fort Sam?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, yeah, we are stationed here at Fort Sam. So it really depends. For sure, everyone in USAGPAN is here for the first year because USAGPAN is front loaded, which means all of our didactics or lectures are the first year of school. And then after that, so that's the classes are in Fort Sam. There's like a nursing building on post, and that's where we go to class every day. So that's guaranteed your first year here. You're going to live here in San Antonio. And that's called phase 1. So phase 2 happens after you finish your first year of didactics, and you have about, I think, 6 or 7 clinical sites where you can do your rotations at. So you can stay here at Fort Sam. It is one of the options, and it's at Brooke Army Medical Center. But you also have other opportunities to go to any of the other 6 locations. So, I mean, a couple examples, you can go to Hawaii, Tripler, you can do your rotations there, or Madigan and Washington is another option. So it really just depends, like, where you want to go do your clinical rotations. And I think you do get some say in it, as far as like the faculty and director, telling you where to do your rotations.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you just said you just finished up Bullock. You're finally getting settled in. So you're starting classes here soon.
That's correct.
Is there anything that you wish somebody had told you before, not necessarily, well, even through the process? So starting from talking to the first recruiter, even though it did sound like you already knew what you wanted, you pretty much came in, you're like, I want to apply for USAGPAN. So that really wasn't an issue, but was there anything that you wish somebody told you through the process? So that way it can either be adjusted on my end for when I talk to people who are interested, or I can even point them to this video and say, hey, this is something you need to ask about.
That's a good question, a tough question too. I will say, I wish before I started, my Army training and all that, I wish someone had told me that I don't need to know the why for everything. I think I mentioned this in one of my previous YouTube videos too, but during DCC and Bullock, you'll do a lot of stuff that it just feels like you're being told to do it just for the sole reason. And I know I was probably not the only one, because like our group, we're medical officers. We're not the brightest, but we're pretty smart people. So we like to know why we're doing things, the process. So I wish someone had told me just like an attitude check, just be positive all the time, and not necessarily needing to know the why on why you're being told to ruck 5 miles or whatever. It's all part of the process. They're doing it to build you to be a better officer ultimately. So yeah, I had to learn that the hard way, over time. So
everyone coming into the Army, it is a learning process. So that's definitely good piece of advice for a lot of people coming in. Going through the training, were you with any, so I know you said you were with mainly USAGPAN. Was there anybody from the reserve side that was at the same training that you were at? Did you get integrated later on, or how'd that work?
Yeah, so initial entry training, DCC and Bullock, it's pretty integrated all throughout, like the 4 or 5 months that you train. You do stay with all your direct commission USAGPAN folks. So the entire time I was with like my 11 other direct commission classmates. We're all doing the same stuff together. And at the same time, we had at DCC, I think we had about 100 other people with us. There were a lot of people that were reserves. Like we had some dentists, we had some veterinarians that came from their reserves home, stations. And they had already been, surprisingly, they had already been working for like the last year, and they just couldn't get a slot into one of the DCC courses, up until now. So yeah, you will work with a lot of your reserve and National Guard component counterparts. So it's pretty cool to train with them at the same time.
Awesome. Cool. Well, so I just want to kind of give everyone just a little insight into kind of what USAGPAN is. It's pretty much we pay for you to go to CRNA school, and also a little bit what the training's like, what the process is like. I really want to thank you, Lieutenant Lim, for just taking the time out to talk with us, and for future USAGPAN applicants. That way, at least they kind of, it's straight from somebody who's not part of the recruiting side. It's from somebody who's actually going through the course right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I would just recommend anyone that has like any, um, you know, endeavors in serving their country, check out this program. If you're an ICU nurse and you've wanted to, go to CRNA school, give this program a chance. Check it out. If you meet the minimum requirements, it's awesome. You get paid as an officer, you're commissioned as an officer, and you have no worries about finances while you're in school, which is, I know, will take a lot of burden off a lot of people. So it's a great program. I'd recommend it. I'm not just saying that because I'm in it. But yeah, definitely check it out.
All right, perfect. Hey, thank you very much. If you do want to see Lieutenant Lim's videos, I'm going to go ahead and link to him right now. That way you can head on over there. He's going to go ahead. He's pretty much going to be posting his entire time through this process. So if you have any questions, head on over to his channel, like, subscribe, and shoot him a message if you do have any questions on this. So thank you very much for coming out.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.